I was 5 years old when I was first molested. Molestation went on from the age of 5 to 19, and my life was never the same after that.
Like most abused children, Garlena Hines was molested by someone she knew.
And I'm thinking, when will this ever stop? Is this how my life is going to be? Somebody's going to always be violating me, touching me.
By her teen years, shame over what had happened turned to anger and severe behavioral problems. Since Garlena didn't grow up with a father, her mother felt a role model would help her. That's when a 42-year-old married male cousin offered to help.
And it started with, let's just walk on the pier, let's just walk to get the breeze. And I'm thinking, this is okay, but we're holding hands as if we're a couple. Maybe there's something wrong with that. And I'm thinking, could this be happening again?
When Garlena turned 14, her 44-year-old cousin took her to a hotel room.
And so on my way to the hotel, I'm thinking, this is not something I want to do. And before the night was over, I had lost my virginity, something I know I could never, ever get back.
Garlena had always gone to church with her mother. One Sunday, the preacher got her attention.
And the minister was talking on the reality of hell. And in the middle of his sermon, I get up and I walk to the altar. And he looks, he say, somebody get this child. I said, no, I don't want to go to hell. Because if I die now, I'm going to go to hell. And the lady took me aside and she began to pray for me. And she gave me the plan of salvation. And I felt so cleansed at that point. And I want to tell everybody.
And that included telling her cousin who was molesting her.
I said to him, guess what? I gave my life to Christ. I'm not going to hell. And he says to me, that doesn't mean we have to stop sleeping together. And everything in me like crushed. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm stuck.
Although Garlena says she asked Jesus to save her, she didn't let him become the Lord of her life. She and her cousin's sexual activity continued until Garlena was 19.
It did something for me internally. It did something for me emotionally. And so I knew, and although I was going to church, I was in church and understanding what I'm doing, but the stronghold he had over me was strong over me, and I didn't have enough in me to break it or to fight it. And then I couldn't tell anybody that could probably help me pull away from it.
After Garlena graduated from high school, her cousin lost interest in her and stopped calling. She went to college and started dating other men. Then one night she was raped by a friend. Garlena didn't tell anyone, and it became just another secret in a lifetime filled with secrets and shame.
And I made a vow to take revenge on every man that I could. And whether that meant tearing up homes, whether it meant tearing up marriages, I had a vendetta. And if I broke up a marriage, I didn't care. I moved to the next marriage, and to the next marriage, and to the next marriage.
Garlena became pregnant with twins from one of her affairs. At 5 months, she miscarried and lost both babies. Shortly after that, she made the decision to end her life.
And I heard this bird just chirping, and it began to become distracted. Now I'm on my way to kill myself, but I'm being distracted from killing myself. And I heard the voice of God for the first time. And God said to me, if I can take care of the sparrow, I can take care of you. I dropped my keys. I fell on the floor. And I said, God, thank you. Get me out of this.
During a New Year's Eve church service, Garlena made a decision.
And my pastor got up and he said, we're going to be free in '93. And that was the word I needed. There was no bolt of lightning. There was no altar call. I didn't fall out. Nobody laid hands on me. But at that moment, I felt something break in me. The greatest thing that night was after everything done, whether it was my fault or not, everything I've done, I realized that night he still loved me. He hadn't changed his mind about me. His plan for my life hadn't changed.
Garlena started developing a relationship with God.
I went after God with all my heart. I wanted God. I hungered and thirsted after him. I wanted him more than I wanted any relationship or any man. And that was the turning point of the transformation.
Over time, the biggest part of her healing came when she forgave her abusers.
Matthew 6:14, help me. And it says, if you don't forgive those who trespass against you, your Father in heaven won't forgive you. God showed me how to walk in love, and forgiveness sometimes is the best justice.
Today, Garlena is raising her 14-year-old niece. She's also written a book and helps other women who've been abused.
I encourage women everywhere I go that they can be free, they can be whole, and whatever they feel that God has called them to do.
And Garlena has a message that just isn't for abused victims, but for everyone who needs to know that God hasn't forgotten them.
He doesn't want you to stay broken. He don't want you to stay torn. He came that you will have a holistic life and have it in him. It took me 7 years. Don't give up. Don't back down. Don't forget the fight, because God wants you to be free.